If you are struggling with holiday blues or winter blues or seasonal affective disorder, just not feeling like yourself, or you're experiencing grief, like a resurgence of grief, or you are grieving this holiday season, this podcast is for you. I want to share with you that the holidays can be very, very hard. And I know this, I'm going to speak from experience, and holidays are challenging for me. Every year, it's this time of the year, December hits, Thanksgiving hits, and then December, and I have this sense of sadness. I mean, re-experiencing the loss that I have had in my lifetime, losing my mother, my father, my son. My parents made the holidays festive. Everyone was remembered and everyone was welcome during the holiday season. And it's a challenge for me to do the same. I'll share with you over the years how I've developed practices and principles to help me through this time. And I rely on these practices and principles every time. And as I'm recording this now, at the beginning of December, it is that reminder that I continually have to engage in the disciplines and practices that improve my physiology, improve my serotonin levels, improve my oxytocin levels, because that is key to experiencing joy. And ultimately, all our loved ones would say this: we just want you to be happy. I just want you to be happy. What is it to feel happy, even in the midst of stress, trauma, and pressure? If you've been with me a while, you've heard me talk about the cortisol, oxytocin connection and disconnect. Cortisol is a life-saving hormone, and when it's elevated, it is released in times of stress, it is released in times of infection of our body. But if it's constant, too much, too long, we will suppress our paraventricular nucleus in the brain, apparently suppresses that level of cortisol. So you get into this dangerous place where cortisol is low and oxytocin is low at the same time. So it's that feeling of burnout, isolation, depression. You don't enjoy doing things. You have no sense of joy, peace. And that's real physiology. So we have to empower oxytocin so we can improve oxytocin and keep cortisol down. So it is that seesaw. Cortisol's up, cortisol's up, oxytocin's down, oxytocin's up, cortisol's down. But if cortisol's up for too long, then you get that very dangerous physiologic state where cortisol and oxytocin are both low. That's the physiology of divorce. They talk about gray divorce, and that is divorces initiated over age 50. I don't know. I didn't really start getting gray till age 57, but okay. Not to split hairs, haha, no pun intended here. But gray divorce, and 70% of gray divorces are initiated by women. Now, there are many reasons, and I've talked about this in the past, and it's something I lecture on too for this issue of gray divorce. But one of them is the disconnect, a feeling of this physiologic change where oxytocin and cortisol are both low, and you don't feel connected to your partner anymore. And also, there's a decrease in oxytocin increasing activities in your life because gradually you pull back, become more isolated, stop doing the things you enjoy. And what else happens with gray divorce? You have the three common reasons: disconnect, discomfort, there's pain, there's discomfort. As we get older, we have more vaginal dryness and can hurt when we have sex. That's the other thing. And the issues of desire. I had a patient in my office recently, and she said, she said, until I found my Jolva product, so my anti-aging cream for the vulva, she said she was in like roommates. Her and her husband of many years, who she had loved, were like roommates, and she kept feeling like she's slipping, slipping, slipping. And she said, is it the hormones that are a reason for for these sensations in my life? And also the fact that, it hurt when I had sex, it just became an inconvenience, let alone a deterrent to have intercourse with my partner, which is how we always reconnected. And she said, until I found your Jolva, I was really feeling that segmentation, that separation from my partner and my life, and just reducing that discomfort made a big difference. Now, there's so much more, but intimacy increases oxytocin. It's the way we empower our body, empower our physiology to experience, empower our physiology to experience joy. So during this time of the holidays, many years ago, I wrote an article that was very, very popular. It was called Good Grief, Charlie Brown. And then his question is there such a thing as good grief? And I still often ask that question, but I do believe the answer is yes. And grief is a lesson for us. But during the holidays, we can feel that sense of grieving and to think very tenderly about grief and my own experience. If you remember watching the Charlie Brown cartoons as a child, especially Thanksgiving, Christmas, and of course, Halloween. I mean, I have to admit, I was a huge Snoopy fan, but as I reflect, Charlie Brown's a pretty sad chap, right? He was pretty sad. He was, we would say, anhedonia, didn't have much joy or pleasure in his life. And again, probably if I had a psychiatrist like Lucy, I'd be locked up by now. So when we think of good grief, and Charlie Brown's famous saying was good grief. And we have to ask, okay, really? Is there such a thing? Well, grief and sorrow and missing a loved one during this time is a reflection of the immense joy that we felt for that individual for sure. Now, this is different than experiencing seasonal affective disorder and winter blues that often has to do with lowering levels of vitamin D. And that's why we want to keep those vitamin D levels optimal, at least around 50 or above during these holiday seasons, so that we can have enough serotonin, melatonin, progesterone being produced, and that will help with our physiology from that physiologic effect of shorter daylight hours. And but we add that in, layering that onto a season of truly missing those we love, that we would love to have them celebrating at our dining room table with, or opening presents on Christmas morning with, or those special baked goods. My mom was a baker, so we would have literally 30 different, at least 30 different varieties of Christmas cookies, a bûche de Noël, the Christmas tree log, the different cakes and muffins, and I mean, it was just incredible. And all to and Christmas loaves to give to friends, families, teachers, doctors, etc. My mom did it all. And so during this time of years where I don't do that very much at all, that, I feel like, okay, I feel like something's missing. What else is missing? When I look at my dining room table, I see people missing at my table. I see my parents missing. I see my son missing. I see my daughter who's in Hawaii for, where she lives in Maui for the holidays. I see, she's missing. So I think about those who are, alive and past, and wow, what I would do to have everyone together with us. And um, especially during this time of year. So, and it can make me slip into a woe is me philosophy. Have you ever experienced that? Like, oh, like so sad, right? For me, I start going, my parents are gone, my son is gone. Here am I supposed to rally and express joy and happiness and be all these things. How can I create joy and during this Christmas for everyone, for all my children and my grandchild, when I'm not feeling it personally myself? So I have to say, okay, how do I shift my physiology in order to feel joy? So when I start in this, I'm like, yep, nothing good about grief, Charlie Brown. Definitely not. And there have been seasons in my life where it was chocolates, extra pecan pie, wine, stuffing those feelings down, just trying to stuff those feelings down. And that is not good Christmas stuffing. That's for sure. We should not, stuffing things, especially emotions, um, doesn't help us deal with it. So there's a great children's book that I would read to my kids all the time. And it was called Going on a Bear Hunt. It was an English author, it won awards, but it's a great book. If you've got grandkids, small kids at home, get Going on a Bear Hunt. But one of the favorite sayings in that Going on a Bear Hunt is that you can't go over it. I can't go over it. I can't go under it. Oh no, I have to go through it. And that is so true. We have to go through this grieving process. We have to recognize that no stuffing, although it's very tempting to stuff our feelings down, to shut them down. I mean, and I'm a big believer in compartmentalization of feelings. What does that mean? When I start to get uh, worrisome thoughts, I say, okay, I'll bring those up at 8 to 8:15 tonight, and I'll think about that then. I'll set my timer reminder. Okay, I'll just compartmentalize those thoughts till then, and then I will honor them. So I am not stuffing anymore. I am just directing it to a time where I can dedicate to those feelings. So they're not continually coming up throughout the day into my brain, into my life, into my mood, so that it can compartmentalize those feelings. And there's good science behind that practice too. And I would highly recommend that. So, and as equally important as compartmentalization is, it is the practice of joy and love and gratitude, gratitude in the moment on a daily basis, as well as being present in the moment, is very, very key. And believe me, I've run from my grief and traveled around the world looking for answers just to recognize this very important fact. Very profound. Take notes if you have a pen in your hand. I want you to write this down. Everywhere you go, there you are. And that is so true. It's an old Buddhist saying, but everywhere you go, there you are. I literally traveled around the world to learn this one statement, this one fact, that you can't run from your problems. Well, they're with you. You can't run from those emotions, those thoughts. They're with you. Can't go over it, can't go under it. Oh no, you have to go through it, right? Um, and it is important. As I talk about this to you, I'm going to ask you, have you grieved? If you've lost something, and it could be a job, a partner, a loved one, have you grieved? Several years ago, a friend asked me this, and he said to me, Anna, have you grieved? I answered, of course I have. I think maybe, maybe not. And as I was reflecting, he said, Anna, I give you permission to grieve. And it was as if a floodgate had opened, and I cried, I sobbed, and I've learned a lot from this journey. Crying, first of all, is cathartic. It is very healing, can really help with increasing oxytocin, believe it or not, just by crying. And and so it it was very emotional experience to give myself permission to grieve. So I'm going to ask you this, have you grieved? And then I'm going to ask you, do you believe you have the permission to be happy? Hmm, it may seem very silly. Of course, I have the permission to be happy, but really, I question, I've had to question that myself. I had a patient in my practice recently, and she's an amazing mother of 4 children, 3 Ivy Leaguers, pedal to the metal her entire life, has dealt with cancer. And I mean, one thing after the other. And I asked her in the office as I was talking with her, I said, do you know that you can allow yourself to be happy, that you have permission to be happy? Can you give yourself that permission? And she just started crying. She felt, and certainly, like many of you, have carried the weight of your families on your shoulders. Maybe it's illnesses, maybe it's generational trauma, maybe it's parents' burdens, your own personal trauma. But you've carried this weight. And I'm talking about this now because I'm doing this inner work too. I'm giving myself permission to be happy in spite of all the things that have happened in my life, and many things that I blame myself for. And that I've had guilt and shame over, to be able to release that because there's no way to take it with you, certainly not into the next life. So shouldn't, I'm saying this to myself too, take it into our next step. I always tell my clients, what's your one next right step? My Magic Menopause ladies and Girlfriend Doctor Club members hear this all the time. What is your one next right step? And it certainly does not include taking shame and guilt into your future, not one more moment, but to be able to give this up and enjoy your life and enjoy your freedom and be happy is the greatest gift you can give yourself. So there's emotional work we have to do. There's physiologic processes also that we have to shift in order to feel these emotions. If we're high stress, high inflammation, high worry, there's no room to increase oxytocin in your life. So creating these things to increase oxytocin, I think is certainly a gift. I've also learned that we have to grieve in our own way. And yeah, we have to grieve. So, whatever that means for each of us, there is no speed grieving. I know there was this book called Speed Grieving, so I immediately picked it up and see if I could learn something. And the bottom line was there is no speed grieving. Each of us has our own time frame, but there's no fast way through it. And there are unexpected and expected times that we will grieve again. For example, when someone else's pass away, when you think, "Oh, I wanna call my mom," and then you realize you can't call her, you can't hear her voice again, but you have to shift that. That's a moment of grief that can resurface. So sometimes there's an avalanche of emotions, sadness, sorrow, actually deep, deep wells of sorrow, grief, loss, and despair. There is a natural roller coaster to life. Highs and lows are to be expected. So I asked myself, what can I find good about grief? Well, actually, grief, there's a few things. Grief is a reflection of deep love. This means we have loved deeply and can continue to love deeply. Love never dies. Like I held on to that phrase so long that just love never dies. Energy, we know, quantum physics, energy never dies. It transmutes, it transforms. So love never dies. And it's a powerful energy, and we harness that into ourselves. Also, grief reminds us to have faith. For me, I could do no things without God. I have a strong faith and a belief, although when I lost my son, I had completely lost my faith and belief. Um, and it's been a journey to gain back and lean fully into my faith and my belief again. And I think it's that concept of trusting in God, trusting in universe, trusting in goodness, kindness, and love, and the kindness of others to be able to trust in that um, is healing. Grief teaches us to be present. You have to live in the moment because here is where life is to be lived. And living it gives love, honor. You can't look like my cousin Grace, God rest her soul, would always say, "You got to put eyes in the front of your head for a reason. You got to look forward, right? In this moment, you can't look back. You can't look into the past." And I remember that message quite well and have to remind myself of that. Okay, in the present moment, can't look past, can't re uh, remake that situation, but I can be present and look forward. Also, grief is not in control of us. We are in control of it. With practice, it is a story that we tell. Here are some coping skills and resilience builders that I rely on. First, I give you full permission to grieve your own way, whatever that looks like. There's no time limit on it. And again, it's a roller coaster. It can be a roller coaster of emotions for our entire lives. Uh, so, first is keep your tank full. I mean, this is nutrition. Nourish your body. Stay well hydrated. Add in those electrolytes. Go for long walks. Exercise. Work that muscle and eat keto green. All of that will help you keep your tank full. Sugars can tend to decrease serotonin and put us into that negative spiral where we're trying to fill our tank, fill our tank, fill our tank, but we feel like we're spiraling. Carbohydrate, sugar will do that. So really focus on a good keto green meal, feel well nourished, high quality protein and hydration between your meals with electrolytes. Okay. We fix our physiology in that way. The second thing is be present. The mantra that I've used is pause, breathe, smile, look into someone else's eyes and connect. So pause, breathe, smile, connect. Third, daily gratitude, journaling, and prayer. A friend of mine, Ben Azadi, always says vitamin G, vitamin G, vitamin gratitude. Gratitude is one of the biggest gifts we can give ourselves. These practices increase oxytocin and decrease cortisol. Fourth is donate to a charity. Give of yourself. Time, talents, and tithes makes a huge boost in oxytocin. So also giving to others really does support you and your physiology in return. Again, oxytocin is the most powerful hormone. And you can volunteer at a local shelter or kitchen, animal shelter, foster a child, anything like that is powerful. Fifth is to compartmentalize. Allow yourself time to grieve or to reminisce. Schedule that in. So as I described earlier, 15 to 30 minutes, set a time. For me, it's 8 to 8:15. And I had developed a practice of putting thoughts into that time slot that I need to visit, I need to honor, and I'll come back to so that I can continue through my day um, with some decent amount of capacity. So during the holidays, when emotions are more intense, I compartmentalize into my meditation time. So with prayer, gratitude, journaling, and it gives me time to honor my memories of those that I've lost and not be consumed by them throughout the day. So I wish you a memorable and loving and peaceful holiday season. And with your family, with yourself, know that you have permission to grieve and you have permission to be happy. And I thank you with immense gratitude for being in my community and for sharing with me what you're going through. I hear from many of you during these holidays and over Thanksgiving when I had talked a little bit about grieving and mental health during the holidays. So I thank you for sharing your concerns with me. And I send you the warmest wishes for you and your family during this holiday season. I am looking forward to a fired up, amazing 2025. Thank you and God bless. Till next time, this is Dr. Anna Cabeca.
Thanks for watching another episode of the Girlfriend Doctor podcast. Check out all the links below for more.